Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to this special webinar. Today, we have an incredible guest with us, Radhika Jhaveri ma'am, and who has an inspiring story to share. Radhika faced a tough journey since the age of 13 when she began experiencing endometriosis symptoms. Sadly, it took a staggering 17 years for her to receive the correct diagnosis. That's a long time to endure uncertainty and pain. But despite the challenges she encountered, Radhika emerged as a true fighter. Today, she is a nutritionist, a certified endometriosis expert, and the founder of the Pain Free Endo System. Her expertise and dedication have made her a guiding light for others facing similar struggles. And we are truly fortunate to have Radhika Jhaveri ma'am here with us today as she will discuss the topic of Endo and the gluten dilemma. The topic is immense important as many individuals with endometriosis have reported improvement in their symptoms after adopting gluten-free diets. And we are incredibly fortunate to have Radhika ma'am with us, ready to share her experience, knowledge, research, and personal experience on this matter. So, without any further delay, let's welcome Radhika Jhaveri ma'am. And Women with Wing is indeed fortunate to have you, Radhika. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Diksha, for this amazing introduction. Thank you, Pair Academy and Women with Wings, for giving me this opportunity. I am very happy to share my insights, research, and knowledge on the topic of gluten because that's the most common question, and it's a very, very big dilemma in every woman's mind who has endometriosis. So I would say this is the right topic to begin with if we have a series of nutrition webinars going on for endometriosis where we can start spreading awareness and a little bit of more mindfulness towards eating with endometriosis, which is my actual goal. So to further explain, let me start with anybody who has endometriosis, what they think about eating with endometriosis. It is all about eating an anti-inflammatory diet, as we all know, which means we are going to go alcohol-free, soy-free, sugar-free, grains that we're going to talk later, gluten-free, dairy-free. So the biggest there are three main important foods that we avoid, which is sugar, gluten, and dairy. So anybody who has endo wants to begin with this, right? Now, dairy and sugar is going to come later, but in definition, these three foods increase inflammation. And why we want to go anti-inflammatory? Because endo anatomically is an anti-inflammatory disease. So these foods are going to eliminate inflammation as much as they can. Now, bringing the topic to gluten. Gluten comes from grains, all right? And grains, if we look at it from the transition of, maybe 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, the quality of grain earlier is very, very different from the quality of grain now. Most have become GMO. Others which grains are not GMO have been refined. So whatever we consume in terms of grains, not particularly just gluten, is very processed, refined, or GMO, which is a big red flag for endo, essentially. Now coming to gluten, the same thing applies to gluten. First of all, it's refined. So whatever processed flours we use, when the wheat grain is made into a flour and it's kind of, powdered into a flour, it is supposed to be yellow. All right. It's not white. The whole grain flour is yellow. And as it is allowed to age, it turns white. So when it turns white is when it is, aged, and that's when it gets these properties of being sticky. So whenever you make a flour, when you make dough with wheat, it's, normally sticky. And especially when we bake breads and we add yeast to it, it oxidizes with the yeast and then it brings this whole airy kind of, consistency to the flour, which is very good, gives you delicious pastries and croissants and all of those things, which actually is like the food for inflammation. The stickiness that there is actually what, contributes to the inflammation, which essentially is gluten. So when you age, the gluten in the wheat flour is getting stronger. So it's at its strongest when the color of the wheat starts from yellow to white. All right. So I'm not going to go into all the scientific jargon about all of this, but I'm just going to kind of simplify it as much as I can for all of you to be able to get a better understanding of why gluten is a contributor to endometriosis, which will help you make more informed decisions whether you want to consume gluten or not, or whether you want to consume whole grains. Anybody who has endometriosis, I would recommend to consume only whole grains, which are minimally processed and unrefined, because that's what we want in terms of reducing inflammation, not just avoiding gluten. In terms of any grain that we eat, what I'm trying to say is, if we go and avoid gluten and we go all gluten free, but we're eating other grains that are processed and refined, it's going to have the same effect. All right. So it's just the gluten word that has been, glorified. Yes, of course, it has its own set of inflammatory responses in the body, but this is what I want to point your attention towards. All right. So now beginning with grains, like I explained to you, there are potential benefits of keeping whole grains in the diet, especially for those endo patients who exercise frequently and may be energy depleted. So I would not recommend just completely avoiding grains, but those who are exercising and those who need the energy from grains should consume whole grains. All right. And for these women, grains like quinoa, millet, and brown rice can be beneficial overall and a helpful addition to their diet. All right. Now, when we talk about gluten, yeah, a common recommendation made by many endo specialists is to avoid gluten. We typically recommend that our patients try it for at least 6 months, especially if they have gastrointestinal discomfort and or other autoimmune diseases, such as thyroid disease, or you may have rheumatoid arthritis symptoms. If you have those, then gluten is the first thing to check off the list. We need to go gluten-free regardless. Following a gluten-free diet for 12 months was shown to significantly reduce endo-associated pain in 75% of 207 subjects in a test and research, okay? The duration of this study suggests that it may take some time to see benefits from the elimination of gluten from the diet. We have several patients who report that they avoided gluten for a month or two and failed to see any improvement. It may take longer. This might have something to do with the contribution of gastrointestinal inflammation to systemic pain. All right. When there's pain, there's inflammation. When there is pain, there has to be gastrointestinal inflammation because it's endo, because it's adeno. When there is adenomyosis, for sure, there has to be some gastrointestinal symptoms or correlation. So that is when we kind of rule out gluten. So anybody who has endometriosis can always think of going gluten-free without a doubt. All right. Gluten is very hard to digest and can cause a great deal of inflammation. All right. Also, endometriosis is a condition of immune dysregulation, and GI inflammation can greatly alter the immune system. All right. So what I'm trying to say is, endometriosis affects your immune response. It lowers the immunity, it attacks the immunity. And when you eat gluten, it directly attacks the gastrointestinal system, which as a result reduces your immune system. It attacks your immune system. When the gut is the second brain of the body, if the gut is attacked, then everything is under attack, especially the immune system. Now, if I go to in a little bit of the detail about gluten and how wheat and other gluten-containing grains may be contributing to your health problems. Okay, can you just give me 1 minute? Okay, sorry about that. So how wheat and other gluten-containing grains may be contributing to your health problems is what is the hot topic for today, right? So I'm going to go a little bit scientific, kind of explain it as much as possible. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, all right, as well as barley, bulgur, mir, it's a cross between wheat and rye, seten, and triticale. These are all grains that are found. I'm not quite sure what you call them in Hindi. Okay. Oats don't contain gluten, but are often processed in plants that produce gluten-containing grain products and may be contaminated with gluten. Gluten is also used in many processed foods, which is why we avoid all processed foods. We used to believe that individuals with celiac disease and autoimmune reaction to which is provoked by the ingestion of gluten were the only people who needed to avoid gluten. That is what the science said earlier. But a growing number of individuals now appear to be gluten sensitive, a condition that has come to be known as non-celiac gluten sensitivity. It's non-celiac, but it's gluten sensitivity. People with NCGS should also avoid consumption of gluten-containing foods. Wheat also contains other proteins that can pose health problems, such as wheat germ, agglutinin, and amylase trypsin inhibitors. Eating wheat and other gluten foods may contribute to your disease in the following ways. So the first is the gut inflammation factor. If you're sensitive to gluten, your body will react by mounting an immune response, okay, leading to gut inflammation. Wheat germ agglutinin also stimulates inflammation in the gut cells. In addition, ATIs, which is the amylase trypsin inhibitors, can set off an immune response in the GI tract by stimulating immune cells. Both gluten and ATIs may also contribute to overall inflammation and pain in the body, which means when you consume gluten, what happens is it releases certain proteins, and these proteins, they make the gut inflamed when you are sensitive to gluten. Now, when the gut is inflamed, all the cells of the gut are inflamed, and so they set off an immune response. Because there is an inflammation, there is an immune response which needs to happen to bring down the inflammation. All right. So overall, the inflammation increases and the pain in the body increases when the gut is inflamed. Okay. Another is intestinal permeability, which means leaky gut in simple language. Your intestinal lining forms an important barrier that protects your body from viruses, bacteria, yeast, fungi, toxins, and undigested proteins. When your gut is inflamed, cells that are normally wedged close together become separated. So normally the cells are very close to each other, but now because of the inflammation, they kind of start separating. All right. Turning a protective shield into a sieve means when it was a shield before, but now because it's kind of loosening, it becomes a sieve where things can pass through and through. Okay. Moreover, when you eat gluten, your gut releases a protein called zonulin, which stimulates the tight junctions between cells to loosen. All right. What I mean to say is it's like a zipper. It's tightly closed, but zonulin is the whole hand that opens the zipper. It kind of loosens all the tight junctions. It stimulates the junctions to loosen up. That is the job of zonulin, which is present in gluten. It's a protein in the gluten. Together, inflammation and zonulin contribute to a leaky gut, which is a key contributor to the development of autoimmune diseases. So what happens is the gut is inflamed, the zonulin is released, and all these walls, that the tight junctions of the gut start opening up. So it becomes a leaky gut where everything is leaking in and out. All right. So what happens is all the food particles, all the other toxins, everything is leaking out. And most of these are called dioxins, which are very similar to the other human cells and tissues. So what the body does is it recognizes them as the outside, they try to attack, the immune cells try to attack these. And because they are very similar to the human cells, what happens is eventually these attacking cells start attacking our own cells. And that is essentially called an autoimmune response. And that is how you develop autoimmune diseases, which happens to begin with from a leaky gut. Okay. So anybody who has celiac disease, rheumatoid arthritis, all these people have to stop consuming gluten. And endometriosis is essentially an autoimmune disease. It has autoimmune factors in play, if not everything else. The third is increased risk of developing autoimmune diseases if you don't still have it when you have endometriosis. So when your gut is permeable, which means things can come and go at their will, pathogens and undigested proteins leak through into your general circulation, stimulating an immune response, like I just explained. The immune system forms antibodies to these pathogens and undigested proteins. The trouble is, some of these proteins look similar to cells in the human body, like I just said, and the body starts attacking itself. In addition, because 80% of more or more of your immune system is in your gut, chronic gut inflammation can weaken and unbalance your immune function. There is a whole cascading effect that happens once gluten is able to stimulate the gut wall, all right, the gut barrier, and kind of loosen it. And all the tight junctions, once they start loosening up, what we need to do is remove that factor that is causing this in the first place, and then focus on healing it. So the first line of action, if you have any GI symptoms, which means any gastrointestinal symptoms with endometriosis and adenomyosis, the first line of action I will say is to eliminate gluten and see how you feel in the course of 7 days to 1 month. All right. The last one, but not the least, is there is a strong connection between the gut and the brain. Like I said, the gut is the second brain. And if your gut is inflamed, your brain likely is too. Brain inflammation may lead to depression, dementia, or Alzheimer's disease. Okay. So the whole point of this is that gluten is causing an inflammatory response in the body, which is going to be carried on in many other parts of the body, not just the gut. The beginning point is the gut, from where all these inflammatory responses are just going to continuously keep forwarding with each other. All right. So bringing this down to the point where your gut is inflamed, it is under attack, we are eliminating gluten. But there is another factor. When we have endometriosis and adenomyosis, we go through a lot of medical therapy. We go through a lot of hormone replacement therapy. We go through a lot of medication that we are consuming, especially a lot of courses of antibiotics. So what that does is, by consumption of so much of medication, the actual natural gut flora of the gut, you know, the whole environment of healthy bacteria is attacked. When you go on a course of antibiotics, all your bacteria, good or bad, are killed in the process. And when we have endo and adeno, we are always constantly, you know, going through these courses of medications. There's NSAIDs that we are taking. There's all kinds of GnRH inhibitors that we are taking. So what that does is it compromises the gut flora. It creates a gut dysbiosis, which means the healthy bacteria and the unhealthy bacteria are in an imbalance, where the healthy, which should be more, is less, and the unhealthy bacteria, which is less, should be more, resulting in IBS, SIBO kind of symptoms with endo. Now, if you originally did not have gluten sensitivity during your childhood, which means you did not have endo, you eventually have endo, you go through this whole medical treatment processes, surgeries, etc., and down the line, somewhere down the line, your gut is compromised. You develop gut dysbiosis because of all these treatments that are going through, even the stress that you're going through, the sleep deprivation that you're going through because of the pain. What that does is it compromises the gut, which helps gluten to be very effective in creating even more problems, which means technically you may not originally be sensitive to gluten, but eventually when you have endo and adeno, you might end up being sensitive to gluten. This is my approach, and this is my take from the number of patients that I have seen. That, you know, many say that I never had any problem with gluten earlier when I was a child, but now, you know, why is the whole gluten thing happening? Because your gut is under attack. It has already been compromised. We need to kind of treat it with a healthy probiotic. We need to give you a diet with good healthy prebiotics, you know, good healthy fat, and all kinds of macronutrients and micronutrients to help the gut heal. So what I will suggest for any woman who has endo is to first begin by improving your gut health, improving your digestion, and the gluten elimination diet is very, very important for you to get back a strong, healthy, happy gut. Because if you think about it, gluten sensitivity, there are certain symptoms of gluten sensitivity that you think you will be able to recognize in a person who has this. Anyone who is sensitive to gluten will have a lot of problems, like they have chronic fatigue, they have abdominal distension, they have endo bloating. Endo bloating, biggest sign, gluten sensitivity. All right. You have acid reflux. Any GI symptom, you must eliminate gluten. You have sensitivity, you'll be very irritable. You will be very depressed all the time. That is the biggest, this is one characteristic of celiac disease as well, that they're always pissed. They're always angry because the gut is not happy eventually, right? You have memory loss, you have short-term memory loss. You kind of have brain fog, biggest symptom of a gluten sensitivity. Children who have ADHD and autism have also been put on gluten-free diets because gluten is something that causes highest amount of inflammation in the brain as well. So if you're a working professional, if you have a busy life, busy schedule ahead of you when in your career, and you have endometriosis and adenomyosis, I know it's very difficult to follow, but I would recommend a gluten-free diet so that will not contribute to any inflammation in the brain because we need a well-functioning mind to be able to, work and whatnot. So that is my take on gluten. Yes, there is a lot of scientific research done on this material. If you want more information, you can always contact me. I will give you all in-depth research articles and clinical tests done for following gluten-free diet and how it helps with endometriosis. But in my own personal experience, what I have done is I have eliminated gluten from my diet 6 years ago, and I have seen a tremendous change along with other factors that I have been implementing in my diet as well as lifestyle. It's not just the anti-inflammatory diet that I follow. You must follow an anti-inflammatory lifestyle in order to be able to manage this disease. Having said that, I want to use this opportunity to please bring this to everyone's attention that if you have endometriosis and if you have adenomyosis and your endometriosis surgeon or specialist has recommended surgery, please understand that that is a medical intervention that is very, very crucial to remove the disease altogether from your body. If the disease is not removed from your body, there are no supplements, no diets that are going to help you heal. So what we need to understand is that a holistic approach needs to be applied towards this disease where we do implement factors like nutrition, lifestyle modification, sleep, stress management, but medical intervention is very, very essential and crucial in most cases of endometriosis and adenomyosis. So I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of spread that message out there because a lot of women are hopeful that, what if I can avoid surgery and I have a cyst? But what if I use a holistic approach towards healing? Yes, I offer all of those things. A holistic approach is what goes, but that is for long-term treatment and management of this disease because the recurrence rates, even after surgeries, are very high in this disease, especially endometriosis and ovarian cysts. So what I would like to say is do whatever it takes, do your research, be very, very informed, be very, very aware of the disease, ask as many questions as you can to your specialist, to your surgeon, to your gynecologist, and please don't think they are dumb questions, okay? We are always here to help you out. And having said that, this is everything that I can talk about gluten. I don't want to bore you all more, so I'm open to any questions if there are any. And if not, then we can just call it wrap.
Thank you so much, Radhika, for your outstanding contribution to this webinar. Okay, without further delay, let's proceed to take questions from our participants. The first question by Chetna from Hyderabad. Following gluten-free diet seems a bit difficult and also costly.
All right. Well, Chetna, I don't know where you are living. Where is she living?
Hyderabad.
All right. Hyderabad is not that difficult to be able to go gluten-free. I mean, I prepare my own gluten-free flour for my son because he's allergic to gluten. Although I don't eat grains as much because I don't react well to grains. I just eat brown rice in particular. But for a gluten-free diet, if you are heavily dependent on eating the Indian diet of roti, sabzi, I will say a gluten-free flour is what you can go with. Any flour that does not have gluten, you can mix up all those flours. For example, you can mix up amaranth, which is ragi, some chickpea flour, which is besan, some rice flour, some sorghum you can add. And in that, when you don't find the stickiness, the elasticity, what I would suggest is add a powder, flaxseed powder to that. A spoon will be enough if you're preparing a dough of say maybe 1 cup flour. A spoon of flaxseed powder is good enough to make it sticky, and you can make healthy rotis if that is your concern. A gluten-free diet is essentially not very expensive. It is just a marketing hype created by the media. Okay. If you make home cooked food, if you eat home prepared food, you can eat gluten free. Mexican food is gluten free. Pan Asian food is essentially gluten free. I've lived in Thailand for like 6 years and I have gone gluten free. I had absolutely no problem because everything there is prepared in coconut milk and it's made out of rice. So there are lots of international cuisines. Japanese food is gluten free. And that is what you pay for any food that you go out to eat for anyway. So I will not connect gluten free being expensive ever because I have not faced any problem. I've been gluten free since 6 years. Having said that, I occasionally eat my croissants because I love croissants, but that is a liberty I have now, not what I had earlier. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, next question. Puspa from, I think, Hyderabad. I am 33 years old, 2 surgery done, and she tried homeopathy or allopathy, Ayurveda treatment, everything taken. IVF failed, AMH low, no relief in pain, no baby yet. What to do?
What's your name? What's her good name?
Yeah.
What is the
Pardon?
name of the person?
Pushpa.
All right.
Yeah.
Hi, Pushpa. I'm very sorry with whatever you're going through right now, but to disappoint you, I am not a doctor. I am not an endometriosis surgeon or a specialist, so I will not be able to answer that question for you. But I will always say that take different opinions from different specialists. We live in a digital world where we can consult with as many specialists as we can. So I will say that, okay, I have seen this question. Okay. I will say that consult to as many specialists as you can. All right. And maybe get on a call with me and I can help you with a holistic approach towards managing all of this. But like I said, endo is not a one size fits all. Everybody's body is different. So we don't know what's going on with yours. This is a very short session for me to be able to answer that question because it's a very, very subjective question. But I will say that you must consult as many specialists as you can. If you're located in Hyderabad, you must have surely seen Dr. Vimi Bintra. She is the go-to person for endo in Hyderabad. And then there's always Dr. Abhishek Mangeshkar, whom I'm learning with right now. He's very, very good with endometriosis and adenomyosis cases. So I will say you go to as many specialists as you can, get second opinions, take your time, make informed decisions.
Okay, the next question. Shalma from, I think, Rajasthan. Are grains good or bad for endo?
What food?
Grains.
Grains.
Huh.
Yes, exactly. So I have already
good or
answered
bad
that.
for endo? Yeah, that's.
If she goes through the session, she will know the answer to this question. Grains are good as long as your whole grains, minimally processed, unrefined. You have to also test whether these grains, you digest them or not. I am in particularly very, very uncomfortable with millets. I don't really react well to millets. So I don't consume millets at all. I have found out about myself only after learning how I eat and after improving my mind-body connection. So I will recommend eat grains, whole grains, but first test out whether you digest them well or not, one at a time.
Okay. Next, Pooja Sharma from Haldwani. I need information about recipes.
Yes, of course. If you would have attended the session, you would have definitely gotten the free ebook. But I'm sure, sorry, Sharma, you're not on the session. You just sent the question, so you do not get the free ebook.
Okay. The next question. Does the effectiveness of gluten-free diet vary depending on the sensitivity of endometriosis? Neha from Mumbai.
Hi, Neha. All right. Does the sensitivity of
gluten-free diet vary depending on the sensitivity of endometriosis?
I think that is a very confusing question. What do you mean by sensitivity of endometriosis? First of all, I don't understand.
Maybe
what you mean.
She wants to know. I mean, stage के बारे में maybe stage 1, stage 2 से related maybe I think.
The tests that have been done have shown that 75% of the pain has been reduced in patients who have gotten gluten-free for the duration of 12 months. So if I were to be more clear about the topic, there are not enough tests and research done on subjects with endometriosis and a gluten-free diet. But in my personal experience, it is very difficult to follow and it's very challenging mentally as well. And hence, not many women go gluten-free. But if you have celiac disease, you have to go gluten-free. It's going to kill you otherwise. So those people will definitely go gluten-free. So I would say, yes, gluten sensitivity is something associated with endometriosis. It does not decide anything about the disease being more or less. But once you find out that you have any gastrointestinal symptoms associated with endometriosis, which is 90% of the women, this is again research based. It's a fact. If you have any gastrointestinal symptoms, what I will say is correcting your gut health will improve your immune response, which in turn will help endo because endo is an immune response disease. So that is the connection you need to make. There is correlation. There is no direct, that if I improve my gluten sensitivity, it will improve my endometriosis sensitivity. That is different. If you go gluten free and you eat all the other shit in the world, you are not going to feel better with endometriosis. So there is a lot of other things in play. You need to go dairy free as well. You need to go sugar free as well. If I eat ice creams all day and I say I'm gluten free, it's not going to make sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, yes, going gluten free will definitely improve your endo symptoms. And it will also reduce inflammation associated with endometriosis.
Okay.
Not any sensitivity of endometriosis, which is a term
Maybe
I don't really
severity. Maybe severity
Yeah.
hoga.
Yeah, I have had severe adenomyosis, all right, and I have gone from being in so much pain that I used to be put on sedative injections and painkiller injections, and I used to be hospitalized to the point where I'm actually in my period even right now, and I don't even know that I have my period. So that is the difference I have seen in my life after implementing a holistic approach, which is not just being gluten free, a lot of other things, which are a lot more than being gluten free.
Yeah. Okay. The next question. Should I completely abstain from my diet if I have endometriosis? Priya.
Can you repeat that question? I lost you.
Should I completely eliminate gluten from my diet if I have endometriosis? Priya.
Okay, Priya, like I said, to answer that question, you need to ask yourself, do you have gastrointestinal symptoms associated with endometriosis? Do you have constipation or IBS symptoms? Do you have cramps? Do you have indigestion? Do you have acidity? Do you have acid reflux? Do you have regurgitating? Like, do you have burps all the time? Do you have flatulence, gas? Things like that during your period or before or after your period. If you have any such symptoms, eliminating gluten is going to work like magic. All you have to do is stay consistent. Do not deprive yourself of the other nutrients and eat a nutrient dense diet with loads of vegetables, whole grains. All right. Supplementation has its own set of benefits, and putting everything together will help you heal and feel much better in terms of managing your symptoms. But yes, going gluten free is really going to help you. You don't have to punish yourself. Once you feel better and you've managed your symptoms like I have, you can always occasionally eat that piece of cake or, the croissant like I can never stop myself.
Okay, the last question. Easily accessible and low cost gluten free food option. Gluten free food option, easily accessible.
Easily accessible is sorghum flour, which is ज्वार का आटा बोलते हैं. Then you have rice flour, rice का आटा बोलते हैं. It's all easily available and it's all cheap. Everything has just been hyped and it's all been put in your head.
Yeah.
That gluten free is expensive. It's really not expensive. I mean, you have gluten free protein, those granola bars, but you can do that at home. Everything is easy to do if you take out the time for yourself and make it at home. I practically eat gluten free. I do not order anything from out. I only order my rolled oats. I eat the gluten free oats. I eat quinoa. Yes, that is a little expensive. I agree with that. But because I don't eat other grains, I don't react well to millets. I don't eat sorghum. I don't eat rice flour. But you can eat all of that. You can eat ragi, rice flour, besan, these are all gluten free. I mean, what is there to worry about? I mean, if we are in India and we are worrying about being gluten free. I mean, if you go in the South, everyone is practically gluten free. They're just eating fish, and South Indian is practically dosa, it's rice and dal, nothing else.
Okay. The last question, I think, in comment box. Does besan chila flour also affect endo other than gluten?
No, not at all. In fact, chickpea flour, the besan, is very high in protein. Yes, some people don't really react well to it. That is a question you will need to ask yourself, whether you are able to digest it or not. But in particular, it is not. It does not have any inflammatory effect like gluten.
Okay, that's all.
All right. Thank you,
And
Khushbu.
once again, thank you, Radhika, ma'am, for gracing us with your presence and for being a ray of hope and knowledge in the realm of endometriosis and gluten-free concern. Thank you,
It's my
Radhika.
pleasure. Thank you for having me here. And I hope in the next session we get to, open
Yeah.
everyone's mind towards other interesting topics. Yes, I would like to ask everyone here if there is any topic that you would like me to, elaborate in terms of nutrition, health, lifestyle modification for endometriosis. We could always use that as a valuable input for planning our next webinar, which will be very soon. Right, Diksha?
Once again, thank you, Radhika. Thank you so much.
All right. I will see you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.